And thank you. That we will split a little. First thing is public comments. Do we have any members of the public that would like to make a comment on something not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to board comments. Do we have any board comments on things not on the agenda?
I would just, if I could kind of,
Yes.
there's a couple candidate forums coming up. There was one last night. And some of the questions that came up last night were regarding Brown Ranch or the Housing Authority. So if board members can attend those future forums, I think one is hosted by the chamber. And I can get the dates and give them to somebody for minutes or send out, but and one is virtual with give us really flexible. So I don't know how much the Housing Authority will be a part of that one, but seems like some good information to know what the candidates are saying and where they stand on Brown Ranch issues.
Thank you. Yes, Steve.
I met yesterday with Meg from First Impressions. And there was an article in the paper the other day talking about what was being done out in Europe. Right?
You're right.
Right.
You're right.
I don't know if you read that, but it was all, and rural homes was involved in that. Where they're building homes and they're having childcare centers set up. As part of that, if somebody wants to own those properties, they could manage, they could rent childcare out of their house. My point was that is there any thought ever from standpoint of rentals or condos or whatever, trying to do something similar to that, where you could actually maybe design a unit that could be rented at subsidized, even a more subsidized price, maybe for somebody who would run a daycare center out of the home, but it would be out of not a single family home, but out of something else like a condo. Has that ever been discussed, or was that even possible to think about that? So when building a development, whether it's single family homes or something else, building a daycare into the complex as part of it.
We had it in the plan at Brown Ranch.
Yeah.
So
So there's two different concepts. One is the sort of like in-home childcare that URA's utilizing. I've got a meeting on the books to meet with Meg to talk about that exact concept. And Kathy is correct that we had that concept in Brown Ranch because based on the state requirements, generally speaking, are looking at a townhome or single family home or duplex or something along those lines to meet the outdoor requirements and some of the other expectations of running an in-home childcare. So a condo or apartment, you would need to have its own like separate facility. So similar to what the city's looking at on the CDOT property, having its own standalone operation. I think the value of doing the in-home childcare is that they're just smaller and easier to stand up, easier to manage. They don't require a ton of overhead. And so there's absolutely an opportunity for that. I know just from personal experience, a couple of different in-home childcares in town that, may be like targets for acquisition or something along those lines that could meet that requirement, or we could add it to a future development that's a little bit more in that single family or townhome style development.
We only have 4 homes in Steamboat. We do.
Yeah.
And we have 260 kids, and it's mostly who have no. As well, so. Just something to think about.
To Steve's point, it's like hard to retrofit a home to the state guidelines, right? Like it's hard to take a home that is just built for a home and then retrofit it to meet all of the like safety and licensing guidelines that you would need to be a home provider. So it's easy, it's more cost effective. It's more expensive to build it, but it's more cost effective in the long run to build a home that is already set up to be a child care facility, in-home daycare from the start versus having to retrofit it.
That'd be something to think about with the Bear River complex. That seems like more family.
I will say, Steve, CDOT, when Beth Melton was, on council, she started that whole CDOT, project along the lines of open having childcare. And I know this been stalled due to cost overruns, but we do have, short-term rental money to invest in, housing. So I think, we talked to Meg, that might be an opportunity to look. If it's just if it's a cost overrun, the reason we're not doing it, let's take a look what SDR can do to get it across the finish line, because the CDOT did include childcare.
Thanks.
Any other board comments?
I'll just make one comment that the Board of County Commissioners or the county's draft budget will be published on October 15th. We have to statutorily post a draft budget by that date, and right now we do have the full 50,000 in YVHA's funding request in our budget, and I don't anticipate that to change, so. Seems like we're good there.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments? All right, then we'll move to the consent agenda. Included in that are the September board meeting, the August financials. There were no, the August check register and the review and approval of the August. I've already said financial statements. There were no write-offs. Do I have any questions about the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Kathy, I have a comment on the financial notes. Do I have
Yes.
forward or can I just comment? I just want to comment on the financial notes.
Yeah.
I noticed that we got another $5,000 from Sunlight Crossing, which is fantastic. But I mentioned this to Lala and Elliot. Right now, last time I looked, 4 of their market rate units were vacant. And I realized percentage wise, they have a low vacancy rate. But with our current housing needs, I really think it's something we should try to look at, trying to lower those market rate rents. We can get people in the units. Even, I know their metrics look great at 95%, vacancy rate. But if we're getting like 5,000 back, and we got 17,000 back last time, maybe we should look at reinvesting that into trying to lower rents. Just a comment. Thank you. Any other comments about the financials or the consent agenda items?
Well, just to piggyback on Catherine for a moment, the city has been looking at different projects to subsidize market rate rents. So that could be something to come as a city and discuss using short-term rental funds for. We're hoping to have kind of a more broad program where people can apply, and it doesn't have to be a specific, it could be a homeowner or a renter. We're quite there yet, right? With the more feedback that we get on these types of situations, the easier it'll be to define that program.
Thank you. Any other comments on the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Lou. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Patrick. Any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, the next item is staff reports. Would you like to start, Jason?
Actually, Elliot's is first in line, so.
Okay, Elliot?
Yeah, good afternoon. Just a few updates for the board here. Jason circulated some demographic information that we got last week from OPG. Working with Gorman to get a similar document for Sunlight Crossing. I think that was some good information that we haven't had traditionally, so we'll continue to kind of push on that. And as soon as I get the Gorman stuff, I'll send that over to Jason to circulate amongst the board.
Elliot, can I ask a question? Since
Sure.
we were talking to Norman, I had asked Jason this because I was trying to do an economic impact analysis on the data that y'all sent, but if they can share the specific survey, like if I can know what they ask residents, that would be very helpful to make sure that that analysis is accurate.
Okay. I think they're just pulling this from files.
Even just seeing like how the language was
Okay.
worded and whatever it is that they're requesting.
And actually segueing on that, Elliot and Jason,
I thought, needed in the professional category on that. Because I know we have at least one teacher at Alpha. Teachers, so I didn't know what category teachers are in.
Like if it's a box check or that, you know, like just being able to see the form itself would be really helpful in making sure those occupation information is accurate.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's that.
And my teacher question.
Yep.
Cool.
From the grant side of things, not a whole lot going on, this past month. I know Elizabeth's working on getting us an extension on, an energy and mineral impact grant that we received for Brown Ranch for $750,000. We can use that, grant for technical work associated with Brown Ranch. And then, Elizabeth and I had a call a couple weeks ago with the Yampa Valley, Upper Water Conservancy District to talk about our water and sewer project at Whitehaven. It looks like 400,000, a $400,000 request probably isn't gonna get fully funded, but they did signal that there's potential to do something less than that. So we'll continue to keep in touch and circle back with them and see what's available as far as funding for that project is concerned. We have property survey and newsletters going out here shortly. Just some reminders for tenants at our Whitehaven, Fish Creek, and Hillside Village properties to make sure they're prepared for the upcoming winter, and just some other reminders. And then as part of this survey that we're looking at doing, also incorporating some demographic information into that as well. And hopefully get a better picture of, you know, our tenants at our properties, as well as the information I just spoke about for OPG and Women's properties. And then we have a property walk, OPG property walk, scheduled for tomorrow morning. So we'll be hitting the reserves and anglers and Alpenglow. And we do this twice a year on the property management team. So we'll be touring those properties and seeing how things are coming along from some of the comments that we've received and feedback from the summer. So I'll be sure to make sure the board knows how things are looking there.
Is it possible to coordinate with Gorman on Sunlight, to do the same sort of thing?
Yes.
Once a year?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, I'll reach out
Thank
to
you.
them about that as well. John has some communication updates.
Yeah, so a few items. On the website where Sarah and I, working with Blair, our website consultant, are taking steps to improve the navigation, the layout, accessibility of information. Earlier this week, we released a reasonably significant revision to the board section of the website. So it is now directly accessible from the navigation bar. And in the board section of the website, and Sarah gets full credit for this, in addition to making sure that all the content for board meetings and work team meetings over the past 2 years are web's ADA compliant, we've also changed the layout, reflecting more kind of how the city and county lay theirs out by meeting date. And so then the user can access the agenda, the packet, the minutes, and for board meetings, they can then also watch a video replay of the meetings that have taken place this year. I know that was some questions we had from Bill Paz and other members of the community. Bill, we've addressed that. We will continue to make revisions to the website to improve navigability and flow. But I want to give Sarah a lot of credit for all the work that she's done on that piece.
The website looks great.
Yeah,
The board meetings part with the agenda packet minute, it looks awesome. So great job.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sarah. It looks great. So I truly appreciate it, particularly since we get that such a request from the community on transparency. So really appreciate it, Sarah.
Secondly, for the Hilltop property, and I know we have an update on Hilltop later. Earlier this week, we did get a letter out to approximately 230 residents, associations, and businesses surrounding the property. One of those was served in person here for Mr. Tortora, and saving YVHA 78 cents in postage. But no, so the letter went out to about 230 individuals and businesses within 600 feet of the property. City requirement is 300 feet, so we kind of overreached that on purpose. It informs them of the fact that the Forest Service on the property is up for lease. We intend to enter a lease in conjunction with the city and develop a property. But our goal and intention is to work closely with the community throughout the process. The reason for the timing of that letter going out now is that in the next few weeks, NWCC will be out on the property conducting a soil sample, and we wanted to make sure that we got the letter to the residents and others prior to this. And then last but not least, Lala and Araceli put together, and we have sent out a letter, an email to around 415 folks who had either filled out a pre-screening form for Cottonwoods, had indicated themselves as a prospective buyer or otherwise interested, informing them of the council meeting next week, and at which we will obviously be talking about allocation of SDR funds to reduce prices, and encouraging those folks, if they're so inclined, to either come to the meeting, speak during public comment in support of the recommendation, or we also provided an email address where they can write in with their support. And I think we've had, this only went out, I think, yesterday, and we've had like 5 or so folks who've already written back to us, with a positive response to that, indicating they had followed through. So I think today we're still around 251 pre-screens.
Everybody's waiting for the prices to drop, so to speak, next week.
Yeah, I think
By the time you see some numbers.
Yeah, I think once we are able to publish some final pricing, I think we're all expecting a big uptick in interest and activity.
Council has received 2 emails so far asking for support for STR fundings.
Great.
And John, thank you for including Molly's letter in your reply too.
What's that?
Thank you for including Molly's email and reply.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it. I actually agree with her 100%. So Steve and Dakota, please support this project. It's a screaming deal for the city council.
Yeah, we have, as you know, every month we have emails that either come in through the city or directly into YVHA. We respond to those concerns, positive, negative, neutral, whatever. And so one of those came in since the last meeting and is in the packet.
Okay, thanks, John. And then there's some website and other social media information in my report for those of you that'd like to review that. And then a couple property updates. Mid Valley's moving along. We have paving dates set for tomorrow. So it's moved by a day or so. But just had the weekly OAC call prior to this meeting, and we're firmed up for that tomorrow. So that's a pretty critical item for us in order to get a TCO as we head into the winter time. In addition to that, the team's kind of rocking with drywall. Gyp Creek will be installed next week. So that's some kind of self-leveling flooring that's going down before all of our finished floor stuff goes on top of it. They're also moving forward with exciting and some other trash enclosure carport work there. For the Hilltop Parkway project, as John mentioned, we have NWCC lined up for the 20th of October to do some geotechnical work. for us. Landmark's already been on site conducting some survey and getting some benchmark stuff completed there. So just continuing to try to inch that project forward. And then finally, we've selected a EV charging company to utilize for Cottonwoods. This is our Charge Ahead Colorado grant that we received. So worked with some of their preferred vendors to get bids and numbers and made a selection on that last week. So we'll have some public EV parking and charging stations for folks to utilize at Cottonwoods once everything's wrapped up there. So those are my updates.
All right, thank you. Jason?
Yeah. Just a couple of things to note. One, I really like the double meaning of the prices are dropping.
Yeah.
And that has been a big kind of focus of ours, is getting the package prepared for the city to meet with them next week about investing some amount of money, somewhere between 5 and 13 million. We're still trying to figure that out. And I think on the 14th, we'll get a good indication of where that's at from the city standpoint, and then what that would mean for overall pricing. We've also been working with Community Foundation on a philanthropic loan. And we've also been working with our partners to kind of put together what I would call kind of an execution team for the finalization of the project. So Elliot's been sort of elevated along with Tim Sabo, who's an architect on the ownership team, to be like the local or the partnerships folks responsible for getting the project done and coordinating with the contractor. Do you think is going to make things move a lot quicker? And it puts Elliot right in the middle of it all, which is great for ensuring that, you know, everything goes off exactly as we want them to. So that's an important kind of development. On the Hilltop side of things, I mentioned that the lease is undergoing a final review by the financing team and the attorneys. That financing review has identified that there are still some issues that we need to work out. And because of that, we're not likely to see the lease come back to the city and or the housing authority this month for approval. There are, just to be frank, there's some unilateral rights that the Forest Service has within the lease that would make it difficult to finance. And so we're more or less trying to figure out how do we mitigate that and make the project financeable. Now is the time to be working on that. Federal government's not working on getting the lease finalized right now. And so we have some time to circle up as a team and work on that. But the impact that you will see is that it was originally scheduled for a first reading Tuesday, and I think has been pulled from the agenda.
That won't impact the timeline that this lease has to be approved in order to see this move forward.
I mean, it is starting to crunch into the timeline that we need to create a 2027 construction start. So we have, probably a month or two to get all of this sorted out and the lease approved. But if it extends longer than that, it could have schedule impacts.
I do have a question going back to Cottonwoods, but I don't want to move us from this topic if anyone has questions.
So why don't you bring it up?
Let me ask one more question on this. This arrangement with the Forest Service has been done before in other towns. Isn't that true?
So it has been contemplated in other towns, but never executed.
We had that last meeting on the Forest Service building. There's a lot of optimism associated with getting this lease by mid-October.
Yeah.
But nobody had any understanding of these potential.
Yeah, I mean, the Forest Service, part of the structural problem here is that they're taking a lease document that's generally speaking used for like concessionaires on forest properties. and using it for the purpose of real estate development. And it's not a perfect fit. And I know that the ski area has had to deal with this time and time again of some limitations within, or some, within their lease with the Forest Service has some risks to it of the forest just being like, no, we don't do this anymore. It's a small risk. But if you're a bonfire, you see that in the disclosures, that's gonna frighten you. And so we're working on mitigating that risk upfront before we've invested significant amounts of capital in the project. So better to find this out now, deal with it now, than when we're $4 million into it and at the closing table.
I thought there was one other in Dillon.
It was put on pause in early February of 2025. So they did have the signed lease, but the project has not moved forward as of February of 2025 due to funding and some other questions as well.
Yep.
Coda, did you want to ask a question on Cottonwoods or? Daniel about that?
Yeah, regarding Cottonwood, and coming back to city council next week. Do you think you're gonna have the agreement with Lone Tree finalized by then?
Next week, probably not.
Any timeline update on that?
I'll give a bigger update. It's actually an agendized item on the. So I'll get into that. I would say we're close, but we're not execution ready, and ultimately the board would have to approve it, so it would be at our next board meeting that we would be in a position of approving it, likely the 20th.
Okay. And we can talk, yeah, more about it when you bring it up, but I think there was community comments or concerns about the city allocating funding without having a full pro forma or numbers outlined, so that's why I asked.
Any other questions of Jason?
I just have one. I don't know if you guys noticed or remember, but in the minutes, it did reference that we're gonna discuss the DSD and the Brown Ranch update at this meeting, which I understand we have a full agenda and had to move, but I really do think that, you know, staff is gonna be involved with working on the next reiteration of the community builders collaboration, whatever it is. And I really think as a board, we need to give staff, you know, what our policy direction on that is. And I think, you know, there's been a lot of discussion on it from everyone in the whole community except for the board. So I think at some time we, you know, we agreed last month we would discuss it. And it's not on this agenda, but at some time we have to discuss how we're gonna move forward with our largest asset. And we haven't done that as board. Happy? Yeah, no.
No, I think there was an expectation that there would be more information brought forward, and that has not happened. So when we get some information, we would bring it back to the board.
Well, I think the information is gonna be, is staff, are you guys working with the community builders on defining the scope of the next one? That's what I kind of heard at city council, with the whole building council.
I haven't, I just finally got like some correspondence from the community builders folks about setting up a meeting and going over the framework of a scope. So this is not moving all that fast, which is, I think, quite advantageous considering the amount of things we need to talk about that are very hot right now. And so because it's not moving at that pace, I think we've got the opportunity to come back and schedule a really thoughtful conversation with the board in November or December so that we can really be prepared to have that conversation and not rush it, because this phase of this kind of imagining of Brown Ranch, it's going to take some time. And so even if we wanted to run at the fastest pace possible, it wouldn't make a difference. So
I agree with Catherine that we need to keep it on our minds and we need to have a conversation as a board about it. But I think more importantly, we have things happening right now. We have Cottonwoods that we have all expressed interest in knocking out of the park, which is super exciting. So that's a big priority. Bear River, US Forest Service, like, so I think that. Yes,
We
to
haven't forgotten about.
yes to both, but like,
Yeah.
agreed that right now we have these things that need to get done.
No, I agree. I just want to make sure we don't forget about it. We don't get, and staff doesn't get over their skis on it. So it's not another situation where we've got, staff, having to answer questions without board direction and then getting a lot of complaints from the public.
Thank you for that. We have scheduled for October 20th, the special board meeting. That is needed for a couple of reasons. One being that, as I sort of alluded to, we don't have an execution ready operating agreement with the Steamboat 6732 Partners, formerly Long Tree. And we will need to approve that. And secondarily, we have the Bear River Village purchase and sale agreement we need to get queued up. And so I have some presentations on exactly what all that stuff is. But I just want you guys to be aware that like this meeting on the 20th is really important from the standpoint of advancing some projects that are really important for our pipeline.
Okay, any other questions of Jason? All right, thank you. Then we will move on to the first strategic item, and that is the 2026 budget presentation. And Sandy will lead that. Take it away.
Okay. Okay, so this is the 2026 draft budget presentation. It's kind of a high level overview. We're going to talk about policy and strategic alignment, budget structure and flow of funds, government funds, enterprise funds, salary and benefits, and next steps. So first of all, to remind everyone, the budget is not a financial document, it's a policy document. And it aligns to our strategic pillars, which are availability, affordability, stability, and mobility. It's a statement of purpose, an operational guide, communication tool, and it shows how YVHA plans to achieve its mission and meet policy goals. So under availability, our real estate team is budgeted to market, qualify buyers, and sell 86 Cottonwood units in early 2026. YVHA is bringing new units to our local workforce. Affordability, in 2026, we've leveraged 10 million in grants to buy down prices on our new units and to help with major capital projects at the properties we own and manage. We've also budgeted rental assistance for our tenants who need temporary assistance with their rent increases. For stability, we're embarking on multi-million-dollar projects at YVHA owned properties in 2026 to upgrade the Hillside Village buildings and the water and sewer infrastructure at Whitehaven, keeping our properties healthy and safe places to live. For mobility, we have things in the pipeline. In addition to our new units coming online in 2026, we have budgeted for due diligence, land banking purchase, and pre-construction costs for the Forest Service Hilltop project and Bear River, with Cottonwoods Phase 2 in the pipeline going forward. These future projects will have variable price points and AMIs, giving our locals an option to upsize or downsize their homes. The DPA budget includes $500,000 for down payment assistance for first-time home buyers also. This slide shows how the funds go in and out of the different funds in the YVHA umbrella. So on the left, you have the general fund where we get management fees, commissions, city and county contributions. On the right side, we have our enterprise funds, which are our properties that get their revenue from rent and fees. And then in the center, we have the development fund that gets property tax grants, ownership distributions, and then that money is funneled out as needed. So the development fund transfers money to the general fund. development transfers to Brown Ranch, and then occasionally the development fund will loan or subsidize small amounts to the.
Where's the mill levy money go?
Pardon?
Where does the mill levy money go?
That's the property tax that goes into the
Gotcha, thank
development
you.
fund. Uh-huh.
And then if needed, it's transferred over to the.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, so YVHA expenditures are managed in two categories. On the left, we have governmental funds. And these are funded by tax revenues and public sources, and they're handled differently according to GAAP. The accounting is handled differently. On the right side, we have our enterprise funds, which are handled more like businesses. They're self-sustaining and they're funded through rents and fees. So in here, we have our projected 2025 expenditures and our budgeted 2026. So for the general fund, the 2025 is $961,000 in expenditures, and we're expecting 1.4 million in 2026. And the majority of that is the 1% commission on the cottonwood sales that we're giving to the agency, or giving to the agency. We're getting in 2%, we're expensing 1%, and that's about $360,000. The development fund, 2025 is three and a half million, and we're budgeting 12.9 million in 2026, and that is basically money that's coming in and then going out for the Hilltop and the Bear River land banking purchase. Brown Ranch is going from 232,000 to 190,000. The down payment assistance fund is 108,000 in 2025. And then we have the Prop 123, $500,000 coming in 2026 for first-time home buyers. And then over to the enterprise funds, Hillside is 744,000 in 2025. Going up to 876 in 2026. Fish Creek is 427,000, going up to 444,000. And then Whitehaven is 288,000 in 2025, and we're expecting to spend 3.8 million in 2026 because that's the big water sewer infrastructure project.
Hey Sandy, are these expenditures or income? Can you go back a sec?
Expenditures.
Okay, so on the general, what was the expenditure increase on that 46%?
We're getting in 700 and something thousand for the commissions for the
Right.
sale of cottonwoods, and then we're expensing out half of that to the agency, which is
Thank you.
$360,000.
That's what I just wanted to make sure I was hearing it right. That's 360,000. So what's the other bulk increase? I guess it's most of it. Then never mind that math.
That's the majority
Yeah,
of it,
okay.
yeah.
And the Brown Ranch is money we're contemplating.
Brown Ranch is, since it's on hold, it's just the bare necessities, it's payroll, it's insurance, it's legal, just in case. And some like partial snow plowing and water utilities, things like that.
Are we renting that house out or are we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're renting it out, but the revenue we get is about 12,000 for the whole year. And they are also doing improvements, so the rent could be less depending how much they get done per year. Okay, these are the projected fund balances. We have on the first line our forecasted end of the year 25 balances. And then the budgeted profit or loss for 2026, and then the forecasted end of the year 2026. These forecasted fund balances include capital assets and land in the enterprise funds. So they're not all liquid. Government fund balances don't include capital assets or land because they're accounted for differently according to GAAP. So we are anticipating the overall YVHA fund balance to increase from 7.4 million to 10.3 million by the end of 2026. This fund balance increases because we're expecting the return of equity and the developer fee for Cottonwoods Phase 1, which totals 2.6 million. Government funds. So they align with our YVHA stated goals while supporting staff and operating expenses. Our stated goals are to develop housing, preserve housing, assist renters and buyers. Our current reserve policy is 6 months and operating expenses in the reserve, which is about $1 million. So we're anticipating the gross governmental fund balance to be 6.1 million minus the reserve. So the net fund balance at the end of 2026 to be 5.1 million. And that brings us to a future strategic discussion or things to think about, things to talk about. And we've listed some projects that are going to require some level, differing levels of funding going forward. So under housing development, we have the Hilltop project, the Bear River Village, Cottonwoods Phase 2. Under preserving housing, we have the Hillside Village building renovation. Whitehaven infrastructure happening in 26, and then after that, we're gonna have to replace the electric, which is at end of life. And then Fish Creek Electric is also at end of life, so we're gonna need funding for that. The DPA subsidy, so we have $500,000 coming in Prop 123 money, but it has kind of narrow criteria. It only serves up to 120% AMI. It doesn't serve Stagecoach or Milner. So for those that don't fit in that Prop 123 window, we are about out of funds in our own DPA program. We have 2 loans going through this month, and then we're about out. So that's something we could think about putting some more money in if you guys wanted to. And then last but not least is our reserve. So we need to save for a rainy day. We need to have a healthy reserve, especially with the mill levy renewal approaching.
And Sandy, my 2 comments on that for the board on the reserve. Right now, we're at 6 months. And I would really like to suggest that we discuss looking at expanding that a bit. Because we need to have a strong reserve for, things happen, things change. So we could have the continuation of what we're doing in the pipeline, but also be able to support our neighborhoods that we own. So I'm almost wondering, and this is a question for the accounting experts, if maybe, and Cole's not here, but maybe we should extend that reserve to a year. I think that's a great idea. I mean, on that.
We put up here that this is intended to be a future discussion. So we're seeding the fact that this is going to be a larger discussion because really the question is, we've got resources and the idea is like how much of it goes into developing housing, preserving housing and maintaining healthy reserves. It's probably not 100% to one and 0 to the other 2. It's some mixture, but that's a really important discussion that we did not intend to have with this budget.
Okay.
But that we wanted to forecast for you guys is a really important thing to talk about moving forward. Because I think it's easy to look at the balance sheet and go, $6 million, heck yeah, let's see what we can do with that. I think we need to be very cautious about what we put that money into. Knowing that mill levy renewal is approaching, knowing that we have significant renovations at some of our properties upcoming, we will want to talk about that. That's just a broad strategic conversation by the board. I think it's a great thing to be seeding, but the intent was not to have that larger conversation today.
I do think it's a good idea though, and I think when we have the conversation, we should have that as another bullet point, maybe under the healthy reserve,
Okay.
maybe to increase it from 6 months to a year.
And then also last year we discussed allocating a small amount. I think we discussed allocating a small amount of money to Lift Up to support their emergency housing assistance program. And particularly with the other aspects, what Lift Up does with their food subsidies and with all the federal cuts and state cuts, I think it might be an opportune time for us to look at a small amount going, because the short-term rental tax cannot go to that because it doesn't build new housing, but we don't have those limitations. So I wonder if there's room. I don't mean a large amount. I know we have to be cautious, but even like 50, 100,000 going to Lift Up to help with that emergency housing assistance. So I'd like to make that friendly suggestion for the 2022 budget. Supports it.
Back to your other point about the mill levy, I think it would behoove the housing authority to have some kind of financial narrative for, how you're gonna, I know you're gonna get there, but what that reserve means, where it's, just what the financial plan is, so that you have that as talking points for the mill levy. They're gonna wanna know what their money's going towards.
So that would be more like a forecasting going out 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, something like that.
Go ahead.
Just a quick clarification, Sandy, the 26 P and L on the development fund, I presume that reflects the current deal on the table with Cottonwoods in terms of the revenue to YVHA.
Yes. Yeah. Are you asking about the return of equity and the
Well,
development?
any of the line items that reflected revenue from Cottonwoods, which have all gotten small,
Yeah, it's all in development.
And it reflects the current deal that we're working on, which does not include a return of our land value.
Right.
Which is a fairly substantial number.
And I'll just make one clarification, because I think, and I know that Sandy didn't mean this, but the way it came out was that Milner and Stagecoach just can't receive Prop 123 funds. It's not that they can't, it's that the county hasn't opted into the Prop 123 program. They could if the county decides to opt into Prop 123.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah, so they absolutely could. It's the county did not opt into the first round of Prop 123. If we decide to opt in next year, then absolutely you could use Prop 123 for anywhere in the county, not just Milner and Stagecoach. So just a clarification.
Thank you.
Sandy, in the past, for the down payment assistant fund, we've typically, the Prop 123 infusion is new money coming into that, but in the past, we've just funded it as it's gotten low from our development fund.
We had initial money, I think, from years ago from the city. As people pay off loans and pay it back, it goes right back into the program. So the DPA fund is really kind of isolated. It's more like a business fund also. It just keeps generating. So as we get money back, we have money going out. And for a while, we didn't loan out too much. But we have 2 going through this month, which is about emptying us out.
We have not made any,
We haven't subsidized it.
we haven't made any
Years.
contributions into that in the 13 years I've worked here. So, yeah, it's largely been self-funding, but I think it's also been a function of the fact that we haven't really delivered a lot of for sale product, like the last for sale product that was delivered by YVHA was 20 years ago.
Yeah, there was really no inventory.
Yeah, so the inventory has been low, but now when we're bringing a ton of inventory on, we're anticipating a large demand for that product.
There's also city funding. So doesn't the city have a balance also? Is that also depleted?
That's the city had funded several several tranches of down payment assistance money. We had gotten some through CBD, whatever.
We got like $36,000 in there from CDBG, which is very, very hard to loan out because I think it's under 80%.
80% AMI. So it's the AMI tiers where we're struggling. So the Prop 123 max is up to 120% AMI. The YVHA program goes up to 150% AMI. And then the CDBG, which is a community development
Block grant.
That can only go up to 80% AMI. So we have money in certain areas, but currently the 2 remaining are above that 120, therefore they can't utilize the Prop 123, even though there's $500,000 sitting there. So if these 2 loans go through, then there's nothing left to kind of fill that next gap.
Is the city's $50,000 contribution dedicated to a certain fund, or that could be used for this?
That goes into the general fund.
It goes into the general.
Use it for operating salaries.
Realistically, if we as an organization wanted to fund more down payment assistance, we would need to use some of that fund balance in the 5.1 or 6.1 million less the reserve, so 5.1 to create more loans. We could do that. It's our money at our discretion to do. We wanted to bring that up as part of the broader discussion because it's easy to think about that in isolation and say, wow, great, put $500,000 in there. What does that mean for preserving housing, developing housing, having a healthy reserve writ large? So that's why it's a larger strategic discussion.
Okay, I just have a couple more slides.
Just really quick on that point, I think it'd be great to have like a staff recommendation on if we were to move forward with, supplementing that fund a little bit, what do you think that should look like this year?
Yes.
And is that strategic discussion at the November budget hearing, or I having that strategic discussion?
I think that would be a good time.
Okay, excellent.
Sure. And just to clarify for
Anything
everybody,
beyond 2026, you can have that discussion whenever you want.
do you have a slide that basically says this is the introduction and of the budget and questions? Then November, we have the public hearing and a continuation of the discussion and questions. And then in December, we actually approve the final budget and authorize the mill levy. And notification to the county.
Right, so if there's anything you want to talk about in the 2026 budget, today's the day. And November, to a lesser extent, we'll have the numbers more dialed in November. But today I just have like 2 more slides, and then I think you have probably 20 or 30 minutes to discuss whatever you want. Okay, so the business enterprise funds, these are the self-sustaining. For Hillside Village, 2026 will bring design and architecture work. We'll also be hiring a tax consultant to help us with USDA and tax credit deal. The development fund will loan $225,000 to Hillside Village for the upfront pre-renovation costs, and will be paid back with the tax credit equity when the deal is finished. We also have a federal grant that is administered through the Colorado Parks and Wildlife for the bear-proof trash containers for $30,000. And the rent increases are going to be $28 a month. For Fish Creek Mobile Home Park. The electric infrastructure is at end of life. It's on hold pending funding. Operating expenses are up 8%. Mount Warner Water alone is up 35%. And we have a debt coverage ratio to maintain, so the rent increases are going at $30 a month.
What is the funding gap for that one? Or what's the pending funding looking like?
I don't know what the total cost of the project is. I don't know if Elliot has.
It's estimated to be like around $2 million.
And Fish Creek has the healthiest fund balance. I don't know off the top of my head, but a few $100,000. So they have some money to put into this capital project. But we don't have it in 2026. We don't have the funding for it yet.
What's the time range on end of life? Is this like, you're a member of the AARP, or are you going to hospital?
Yeah, so basically, electrical and water, sewer, is industry standards around 50 years. And so with both Fish Creek and Whitehaven, that infrastructure was put in the 70s. And so it's all direct bury. Today we would put it in a conduit or sleeve or something that maybe potentially extend that life a little bit. But yes, we're kind of right around that 50-year mark.
And is the intention proactive replacement, or are we waiting for something to fail?
No, I think we would try to proactively replace it. I mean, if we start seeing failure, then people, obviously can't heat their home.
That's what I mean.
They,
Yeah, the big deal.
refrigerate their groceries, internet, TV, all that kind of stuff. So it would be, I think it could potentially be pretty bad if there's a scenario that
So we know we're
happens.
due, sooner is better than later, but there isn't at the moment a dedicated revenue source.
No, and Elizabeth and Emily have been working on this for about a year. And there's no kind of identifiable grants for power. There's grants available for water, sewer upgrades. But kind of struggling with finding grants for upgrading electrical. That's kind of where we're at with trying to source that money.
We have some kind of capital improvements fund or projected, like the city has their CIP plan for the next 5 to 10 years. And fund that through different things. But we could transfer reserves to it if we needed to. Is there anything like that the housing authority uses?
No, we've talked about that and I've kind of worked with Sandy and Mandy on modeling some of that stuff out. you know, I mean, you're talking about some pretty healthy numbers, which would bump up our rent more than $30 a month. So I think it's a board decision if they want to move in that direction and start kind of funding these projects fully. But if there is a kind of a downstream impact to that, to the owner in the park.
I just think
One
we
of
need
the-
a plan. We need to have some kind of pathway.
We don't have a separate capital improvement fund. We are working on forecasting. We have modeled out our properties for, gosh, 30 years, maybe in the future. The thing is that these rents can't pay for these projects. So they need to source funding for it. We also can't take, I mean, there's the question of Tabor and enterprise funds, which gets more complicated, but we can't fund more than 10% of the annual revenues for these funds without blowing their enterprise status, which means you can't get loans for that year.
And that's what I was gonna say too, is that we're limited, we like, you know, yes, we could say, should we transfer funds in to fund that, but we've got the Tabor enterprise funds limits that would kick it out of the enterprise zone. But hey, Angelica, with the Excel money coming in with the coal transition, is there any possibility that some of those funds could support a power project such as this?
Probably not. I don't think that funds will be used in Steamboat Springs. Since, I don't know. We have not decided where that money will go, nor do we know how much we'll be getting yet. Like they haven't said, we asked for 70 million, but they could potentially stick to their original ruling and give us 40. So there's a lot of talks about where that money will be used in terms of like economic development, making communities whole, making fire districts or all the special districts, excuse me, whole that are gonna be losing that tax revenue. But I think that is the priority.
Already, okay.
And coal impacted communities being the priority, which Steamboat Springs is not.
I was just wondering, and the other thing also, Dakota, even like Prop 123 funds, I mean, Elizabeth, I mean, correct me, I'm Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong, but those are also challenging because those are state dollars. And that technically would kick us out of Tabor and enterprise fund status also, would it not?
Yeah, you just kind of have to thread the needle because you're just out of enterprise status for 1 year and that threatens getting funding. But if you get the funding first and then get the state money, you can do it. I talked to our Doler person and there's all sorts of way people just kind of thread that needle. But yes, it does make it harder.
So because we currently have the loan at Fish Creek, we could technically get state funds and support it and not be kicked out of Tabor because we just couldn't get any new loans.
Well, we're getting way into the.
If you want to talk to Sandy off record, let's do that. Offline.
Okay, so Whitehaven, that's the huge project, the huge water and sewer infrastructure. So no more broken lines for us to repair. And it will bring healthy, reliable water to the tenants and put them on the city of Steamboat Springs system. So we just received a detailed estimate, like 2 days ago. So the numbers have changed since you got the slides in your packet. It's putting the total project cost at 3.55 million. We are bringing in a federal mineral lease grant for $750,000, congressionally directed spending, which is also federal money, for $900,000. And then in the beginning of 2026, we will seek a state revolving fund loan for $1.9 million. And rent increase is $125 a month. And this is the worst case scenario. We're only bringing the funding that we know that we have. Emily and Elizabeth are still sourcing other grants, and when or if this money comes in, we will adjust the rates as we can.
What is the percent rent increase across those three?
No. The Whitehaven is about 18 to 20%. Fish Creek, I don't know, it says it on the budget. It's in the packet, I can look it up. Or Mandy could look it up while I keep talking, is that okay? I have these, that helps. Okay. So 2 more sites. Seller, I said that 2 months ago. We hired Graves and Company, which the city uses to do a market survey this year, and they benchmarked our wages against 14 resort communities and 14 front range cities. Most of our positions are aligned to market, and a range adjustment only applied to a select few employees. I have included the whole proposed salary schedule and our current salary schedule, which includes a cost of living increase of 2.1% in the packet. Our recommendations are to adopt a 13-step salary schedule that aligns to the schedule used by the city of Steamboat. It assigns roles and job grades, and it adjusts the midpoint to current market rate. Currently in the budget are the recommended market survey. And the impact is a 1.35 million payroll. And it's just 1.9% or $25,000 greater than payroll under the current structure. And last, health benefits. So we shopped around this year because CEBT, our current, went up 16% last year and 17% in 2026. And we found some equally good, or in some cases better, plans through Mountain West Insurance, a local company. So on the left, we're switching our medical to Engle Health, our dental and vision to Delta, our long-term disability and life to Unum. And the savings are almost $59,000 over what we're paying this year, or 32%. We're also proposing that we added paid family medical leave, which we were asked to do by the board through a private company, Unum. It matches the state of Colorado benefits. You can take up to 12 weeks paid for parental bonding, medical leave, safe leave, or military leave. We propose that YVHA covers both the employee and the employer contribution. The state plan for both sides of the contribution is 0.9% of gross wages. Unum is 0.642% of gross wages. The initial cost in January would be $8,300. And if you add all that together on the top, the net savings to YVHA is about $50,000 a year. And Kathy already mentioned this, but next month we will have the public presentation, which will be a more detailed budget presentation with more numbers. And then December 11th, we approved the mill levy and the 26 budget appropriations by resolution.
Hey, Sandy?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of discussion in the community, obviously, about our benefits and our salary structure. So a couple of things I'd asked earlier, just to mention to the board, is if you could please send out that salary study so we can actually have the information when constituents and residents ask us about it, particularly the comparison between comparison to the county and the city employees. I think that back when we set up the structure, it just didn't specifically like what the county and city manager, assistant manager, department heads make. So we can, there's a
So
lot
do
of.
you want benefits or do you want?
Well,
salaries?
the salary first, the salary
Okay.
comparison, because we get a lot of false information out there, like, Jason's getting paid more money than anyone in the whole county. So,
We're
which
within
is,
1%.
which is not true.
Okay, I did have a couple comments about that. I had two board members ask about the salary survey. If you guys want to see that, I didn't want to bring it to the public meeting, but I can send it to board members after. It's a whole lot of information. And the lady who did the study for us said she could give us a rundown at the special meeting on October 20th. Give us a 10-minute rundown just to tell you how to translate all that data if you want. It didn't occur to me because it's such a, we were so like right there, the difference is under $25,000. But if you guys want to see the study, or if you want to hear from Wendy with Graves and Company, we can do that. And the second thing is, I do have a benefit comparison to the city and the county. I'd say the biggest difference is the city has short-term disability. We don't, but we're adding in paid family leave now, so that catches us up. I didn't put, you said to include every single thing. They have like powder days. Nobody has powder days in their written. Maybe they have them in their culture, but they don't have them in their written benefit. But I can definitely send that out.
I think also anything medallions, wellness benefits and such. Cause like, we should have good benefits. We should be proud of it. But since there's been so much attention on our benefits with the extended leave package, I think it'd be helpful for the board to have the clear comparison of all the county benefits, all housing authority benefits, wellness money, cell phones, whatever. Just so we have that information. So when we get those questions or challenges, we have the data to respond correctly.
I'll send that out.
Thank you, Sandy.
Any other questions of Sandy?
And on the survey, Sandy, I'm happy to just get the survey and ask questions unless anyone else wants a presentation.
Okay.
I was curious about the family, and it sounds like it was a choice of the board and not the employees. And is that kind of the reason behind YVHA covering both the employee and the employer contribution?
When the Colorado family came out, our employees voted no. Like, I think at least 90% said no, we do not want to pay for that. So we waived it, but the board asked us to come up with an alternative plan. And this is what we've come up with. And it's a relatively small amount to add to our benefit package. I think if we said, we're gonna do this, even though you all said no, and we're gonna take out money out of your paycheck, our employees wouldn't really agree with it.
That's what I thought.
So Sandy, you think that?
It's kind of like the board saying do this and the employees saying no, so we're kind of meeting in the middle.
Mhm.
So Sandy, the employees not want this?
They didn't want the Colorado state, they voted no.
So, but is this current package something our team wants?
I would say yes, primarily because it costs nothing to the employee.
What does the city and county do for family leave? Does it a copay or is it entirely paid for by county and city?
The county gives you 12 weeks paid and they pay 90% of it. The city gives you 12 weeks paid and they pay 100% of it.
But it does not cost the employees.
No.
And from our standpoint, this having cost certainty was very important for us. Having a small staff, knowing that, okay, it's what, $8,300 for the first year. That's a number that we can budget, we can count on. And that if somebody goes on this leave,
Excuse me.
we're not paying their salary and therefore have resources in our budget to pay for somebody to fill that position if need be. So that was part of the rationale for going down this particular road, as opposed to doing what the city and county do, which is to just pay them while they're gone, which is fine. They have a much larger staff and much more a redundancy built into those organizations, to the point where one person leaving isn't as big of an impact as it would be to this organization.
And this also includes maternity?
Yes.
Sandy, can I, just out of curiosity, are the qualifying conditions for the private plan that you all selected as generous as the state's family plan in terms of how broad?
Yeah.
They're the
Yeah,
same?
they're the same.
Other questions? If none, we'll see you back in November.
In November.
All right. Jason, the next item is review and consideration of the global agreement between YVHA and Mid-Valley. And you want to just, you touched on it, but do you want to just finish that conversation?
Yeah, so we've been working back and forth with our partners. And I would say we're 90% there on the document. We've been kicking it back and forth. Cole's been involved in that. Mark has been involved in that. Obviously George and our team at the staff level. The document it's really important, and we've actually got, if you've seen the information that we've sent to the city that went into the packet, we have some overview of what those points are that are in there, and there's a couple of them that are really important.
packet, you'll see for the next council meeting.
Yes.
Not this.
Not this packet, correct. There's, I would say like 4 or 5 really important points. One is it essentially fixes what the project budget is. Project budget is 57.1 million. That's inclusive of all the expenses for phase 1 and expenses for phase 2. It handles the sourcing of funds so that we have 57.1 million in revenue to make that happen. That's accomplished in 3 different ways. The first is really 2. The first is an increase in the loan from Alpine Bank by $4 million. Second is an increase in, or a philanthropic loan that would come to YVHA secured by the phase 2 land to pay for phase 2 costs. And so the project is fully sourced from that standpoint. We are waiting final approval of the pending, I should say, final approval of the philanthropic loan through the Community Foundation and the additional money from Alpine Bank. If for some reason that Alpine Bank money doesn't come in, our partners will actually bring the $4 million to the table. So the important part about all of that is that we're also locking in that 41.1 million is the gross sales. And this is important because that means that as STR money comes in for the project's revenue, it's always 41.1 million in sales. However, if the city brings in 10 million, we only need to sell 31.1 million in real estate to make that $41.1 million revenue number. And so what it means is that, said differently, the city's STR money buys down dollar for dollar the price of a unit, which is exactly what the city's been asking us to ensure, and we've got that in the doc. The other items that are in there are memorialization of the new cash flow waterfall that removes YVHA's land contribution from that cash flow waterfall. And also we are ceding our 20% profit to the developer. In return for all of that, by locking the kind of 2 anchor points of the total project cost and the sales revenue, the one thing that can float if there's project overruns or additional costs is the developer's profit. And they're taking on and owning all of that risk. It could grow with some savings. It could decrease with some cost overruns. And so the risk is essentially moved completely over to our partners on that side. And we get the sales prices that we're really looking for, depending on what the outcome is of Tuesday night and the following Tuesday night with City Council. And so all of that is being memorialized in this document that is not quite ready for execution for you guys. I was very hopeful that we would be in a place where I could show you the actual document. It's not ready for prime time. My goal would be that you guys will have it for the 20th special board meeting. And at that point, you guys will be in a position to approve it.
And that's a forgivable loan for Community Foundation.
That's what we proposed to the Community Foundation would be a forgivable loan. That the concept being there is that they're solving 2 problems. One, we have essentially a cash need today for legitimate expenses on the phase 2 property. We also we need subsidy for phase 2 to be viable, to meet our community's needs. And so by it being forgivable in the instance that we actually have a successful project, it brings additional subsidy into that project.
And you think, and that one jump ahead, when do you think we'll actually start looking at phase 2? I know it's part of our goals. Is that a design thing? Are we looking at 2026 for 2027 or 2028 or?
So I don't know the answer to that entirely. It primarily, we've got this this huge horizon line in front of us, getting phase one dialed. And that includes revenue from the city's STR funds to buy down prices, finalizing this agreement with our partners, finalizing the loan with Alpine Bank, finalizing the forgivable loan with the Community Foundation. All of those things are priorities one right now. And so once we get past that horizon line, that then gives us the ability to be on kind of like execution mode of finishing off the property from a development standpoint, doing the real estate side of things. And at that point, we can start thinking about phase two. It's entitled for 150 more units. We will be, as part of this agreement with the developers, they will be transferring all of that work to us, the plans, the work product. And we will own that. And we would be able to pick that up and, in the event that buildings 1 and buildings 2 absorb like that, we could move forward quite quickly with building 3 as another for sale product and get that moving. Alternatively, we could look at an entirely different redesign of that place. So I'm not saying that either of those are the way that we're going to go, but I would say in the month of November is when we're likely to have the opportunity to start thinking that way.
And the $285,000 a year interest, is that going to be moved to the cost for the next phase, or are we just going to have that be an expense in the development fund?
So it'll be an expense of the development fund, but it'll be recapturable in the event that we have like an actual project that makes.
Do you think of maybe, because it'd be great if we could, not have that just reduce our development cost, but have that be part of the overall pro forma phase 2, if we could still have affordability. So just wondering, because that's, Kathy and I have lived through interest, payments on properties, and it gets high after a few years, so.
I'm very familiar with that. I sit in the room where I met with the Bank of the San Juans
Yeah.
every day. We're now
We're
in their office.
All
Right, and then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Gonna ask, how confident are you that you'll have an agreement by the 20th? Very.
Yes. Yeah, the document is really close. It's just been a matter of batting it back and forth between the different groups.
It sounds like maybe Lone Tree or whatever their other name is in agreement now, but you're just waiting on things that are kind of out of their control.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest piece of that is the Community Foundation loan.
So Stephen and Dakota, do you think council will be comfortable moving forward at first reading without the final agreement, knowing you'll have it before the second?
I would answer that question.
I mean,
That
you
if we
guys,
didn't have it before the second,
there's no way, yeah,
comfortable at all.
agreed.
Since we have to read it, do 2 readings. We'll have a pro forma, I think. We may be all right. I just don't want to over.
I mean, the agreement aside, there is a pro forma. And I assume that we can show that at the council meeting.
They have it in their packet.
That's what I thought. So you have the pro forma that shows all of the numbers that some might be interested in.
But I understand and hear what you're saying, Steve.
And also, I hope council listens to local developers like Mark, and not just people who have never developed here when they're talking about what is the acceptable profitability and costs and things like that.
I will
Oh,
say
go
that
ahead.
I'm not quite as comfortable as Jason's making this sound. This is all resolved. I think it's going to get resolved. But it has been a contentious issue at times. we don't have Elliott and their architect being put in place because we asked for it. There was their manager became untenable, and so we needed to make that change. And so that was worked out just in the last 4 days. The other thing we have not seen that I've asked for months are the final numbers from Hausman that the developers are gonna have to agree to as well. And Hausman has not given those. And I think they're close. They're gonna have to absorb some cost and there's issues regarding that. So at the end of the day, I think it's gonna get resolved. I think we still have some legitimate hard steps to go. And one of them is gonna be seeing a budget, which is one of the exhibits to this agreement. And that, we haven't seen a draft. We haven't seen anything. And the developer is gonna be just as interested in seeing that as we are.
Well, I would hope that hearing that there's some STR money available to maybe help these units sell quicker, that there's a timeline for that, that these partners would take interest in meeting the council deadlines. Be my hope.
I can't control them, so
I know, but you can message, you can be the messenger.
they got the message.
Yeah, that's been the message all summer.
But, yeah, I think it's important we get this done. Is Paoli gonna be there at city council on Tuesday to help support us on this, since he's our sales partner?
Who?
Chris Paoli? I think it would be helpful if he was there supporting, as a known real estate professional in the community, supporting the benefits of the hopefully 13 million.
Yeah, I believe someone will be there and I know he's been having conversations, but I can see if he'd probably be online. If not, someone from the agency can probably show up.
I think it would be helpful.
Any other questions of Jason? All right, well, let's move on.
All right.
Pipeline review,
Yes.
yes.
Oh,
I'm gonna throw a dart in the room. I'm not available to stay for the third hour of the meeting.
Okay.
I wanted to see if there would be any appetite to switching the last two agenda items, just so that I could participate in the executive session portion, and if the pipeline stuff isn't critical for today, understand if that doesn't work for the majority, but
I agree. I will not be able to stay for the extended time. I have a meeting after this that is pretty regular.
is the pipeline discussion something we could push to the special meeting?
we can do that.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the executive session, and I'd like to make,
Can I add one thing? Sorry.
yes,
Lola reminded me that we have to post the rent increases November. So they will be posted before the board.
Budget is
per budget. Thank you.
okay. Let's just clarify the executive session and what the intent is. It is specific to the executive director performance. It is not intended to include things that are outside of that area. For example, if this board wants to schedule time, and I think they should, about perhaps policies or procedures that we need to change as a board, those should be done in public. This is specifically about Jason's performance and things that we have been hearing in the community. And I'm gonna let George, you're on the line. Do you want to enhance that?
Yeah, I am here. So thanks, Kathy. I think there was some confusion with some of the materials that were sent out with the packet in terms of broader discussions about goals and objectives, etc. In executive session, it should strictly be a conversation about how Jason is performing in his job. And then after that, after we come out of exec session, if there's ideas or direction or that sort of thing, great. But exec session is not for making policies or making decisions.
Thank you. Okay. I will read before we have asked for a motion. The agenda item 9 is executive session to be held in compliance with CRS 246402. 4F for the purpose of discussing personnel matters relating to the executive director's performance. And I would ask that the staff give us, probably that was why we put it at the end of the meeting, so that we could go into executive session, and so thank you very much. And so
just
do I have a
clarification, are you